Welcome to the People Relations Podcast, the podcast series brought to you by People Relations HR Consulting, where we talk with business and HR leaders around the globe. In each episode, we will discuss exclusive insights, strategies, and advice to help you make better people decisions in your business. For show notes and incredible bonus resources, simply visit www.peoplerelations.com.au. Okay, let's get started. Hello, welcome back, and thanks for listening. Today, I'm really looking forward to our chat with Allessandria Polizzi. Allessandria is an award-winning and experienced HR executive, helping business leaders build skills for today's workplace. She is a resilience and psychological safety expert and the founder of Verdant Consulting. Hi, Allessandria. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Where in the U.S. are you based?
I am between Boston and Providence, Rhode Island.
What a lovely part of the world. So, Alessandra, can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do at Verdant Consulting? Who do you help?
Yes. Well, we help any business that experiences stress, which is pretty much every business. My background is in adult learning, leadership development, executive development, and talent organizational development. As you said, I'm a former HR executive with chief people officer experience. And to me, what's been missing from the leadership development curriculum that I've seen in the market is that we don't address the emotional needs of our workplace. And so we pretend like emotions are something that are optional. We can set those to the side, as opposed to just addressing the fact that we all bring our thoughts, feelings, insecurities, backgrounds to work with us, and equipping people on how to navigate challenges and acknowledging the science of stress. So it focuses on that. We offer specific training programs. That's what I am. I'm an educator. I have almost 30 years of experience in education and being in their role, and also start building psychological safety on their teams and organizational resiliency, which helps businesses identify any of the risks or hazards that may be undermining the ability for their teams to really thrive. I can help people learn complex concepts with simple, pragmatic solutions. So we offer resiliency training for the individual, leadership resiliency, which helps leaders understand the stresses of being in their role and also start building psychological safety on their teams, and organizational resiliency, which helps businesses identify any of the risks or hazards that may be undermining the ability for their teams to really thrive.
So, Alessandria, your big mission is to help business leaders and business owners to work on themselves in order to be able to be well equipped to work with their team so everyone can be more effective and productive at the workplace.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'd like to talk about a very interesting concept that you mentioned before, that is psychological safety. What does it mean for people that are listening and who never heard the psychological safety term before?
Yeah, it's really become a buzzword, and think what you might or feel what you might about that. But it's really an area of study and science, which is, we know from research that creating an environment where people can take risks, ask questions, make mistakes as a form of learning, and bring their whole selves to work, that drives better business outcomes, better financial outcomes, increase innovation, increase creativity, increase well-being, increase teamwork. The list goes on and on. And so, okay, that's great, but how? Right? So psychological safety, and I leverage the International Standards Organization 45003, which gives you specific tactics for how to build that. So you look at basically three things. One, do we have the systems in place that will help us either accelerate our ability to connect with each other, or do we have things that get in the way? And a great example of that would be, are we clear about who's doing what role, or do we bump into each other?
Yes, absolutely. As a business leader or manager, your responsibility is to understand the bottlenecks and remove any roadblocks for your team to be able to be more effective. And something that I experienced a lot with clients and working for several businesses in the past is that in a small business, you've got 5 or 10 employees and everyone is doing everything. And that's totally makes sense as you have few resources. But as your company grows, then you bring more people on board and you're able to have different roles looking after different things that are well for the business. And what happens and tends to happen quite a lot, and more often than not, is that there is that in their conflict, being that there is an overlap of duties because people may not be clear on who's doing what. The decision on the roles that you require to run your business successfully is absolutely key.
So there's two more pieces to psychological safety. So one is structure, which you just hit upon, right? That has nothing to do with any kind of warm, feely, squishy emotions. Like that's actual, just do I have the structure or obstacles? The other is, do I understand the environment that I'm in? And is there anything here that would be increasing the stress of my employees? So that's going to look at, are there outside social pressures that are impacting people? Like, I don't know, a pandemic or social unrest. Are there pressures from the supply chain? Do we have difficult clients that we work with? Those are environment, again, those have nothing to do with the emotions of our employees. That has to do with understanding and accepting and taking action against the things that might get in our way. And then the third one is about expectations of behavior. And that's where things like, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, discussing the undiscussable, however you name it, being able to have those conversations. But often we just focus on that part, but really there's a comprehensive way to look at, do we have the organization that will help versus hinder our ability to bring out the best in our people?
In the case of business, how are they learning these skills or mostly tools? How do you deliver these solutions?
Yeah, so we have training and then we have what I would call more workshops. So let's talk about the training. So the training is blended. And so we have a combination of small, short instructor-led sessions taught over a series. And then we have an app, and that app has micro learning, has mindfulness exercises, and it also has the key component to learning, which is sustainment and embedding it within your organization. So as opposed to maybe an app or a one-time training or everyone read a book, what we do is we teach people skills and behaviors that they can apply on the job, and then we keep them connected to those learnings with more practice for up to 3 to 6 months afterwards. And that's how you truly create that embedding of the behaviors and not have it be just a thing you check off. And then on the workshop side, we sit down with organizations and we look at psychosocial risks or hazards they may have in their organization that would prevent people from being able to have that psychological health and safety in their business.
Fantastic. How many times that you go to a training workshop, you're going through the content and you've got maybe ideas, but the next day you come back to work, or the next hour you finish that training and go back to work, and you forget about what happened in that training or the ideas you had, or you don't have time to implement them. So finding good training is really complicated, and especially leadership training that has a real impact on people's day-to-day performance, and in the end, in the case of the leaders, the performance of their teams. So any business owner or leader wants their managers to excel, to make their teams productive, because in the end, that's why we're hiring people, right? To do their job at their best, to bring more clients, to look after the customers, and to exceed expectations.
Yeah.
And there is not many good leadership training out there that is going to have an impact. So it's very valuable that you offer not only different sort of workshops based on good research and what's going to work.
Absolutely. Well, what I notice, and again, I've been in charge of leadership development for very big companies for several decades, and we tell and talk at leaders a lot. You should be this. This is why. We spend a lot of time focusing on the intellectual development, but we don't really develop the emotional skills to be able to navigate. Like, we don't teach them how. And so that's what I focus on, is we don't just tell you that it's important. Hey, you should be resilient. Hey, sometimes you're going to feel bad. We say, here's what to do when that happens, that's been scientifically proven to make a difference. And we give people those resources. The other thing that I think is worth considering is sometimes training isn't actually the solution. And I jokingly said when I was chief learning officer previously that half of my job was arguing against training as a solution, because want to throw
That's very
training.
provocative,
Yes,
Alessandra.
well, but we want to throw training at every problem. And honestly, if we really look at root cause, many times it's not a skill issue. So I'll never forget this really aha moment for me, early career. This is almost 20 years ago. I'm in the middle of delivering this training on a system and I'm almost to the end. Everybody's been there. And one person raises their hand and says, this is all great, but the system doesn't do the things you just said it's supposed to do. And I realized that people told me they needed training on a system that was broken, on how to do workarounds, as opposed to just fix the system, right? So why don't we actually fix the system instead of training people how to work around it, right? And so I get into root cause analysis. I get into asking those 5 whys. Why do you think this is a skill issue? Is it really knowledge? Are you reinforcing the behavior that you're looking for? Are you rewarding the behavior that you're looking for? Are you modeling the behavior that you're looking for? So driving change in behavior isn't just about the intellectual understanding of why it's important. It's also creating the atmosphere in which I can apply those skills and capabilities.
Absolutely. So you do talk to clients to understand the system, to understand what's their real need, and then you tailor all your research, training, tools so that it has an impact and they're not wasting their money.
That's right.
With your experience, Alessandra, how do you think small business should manage their staff successfully in a broad aspect? Obviously, considering that each business will have their own problems, what is your best advice for small business owners to probably navigate that and then find the solutions?
The best thing you can do is do the work around yourself. So you can't help others if you don't understand your needs, maybe what you're projecting, what you're bringing to the table. Are you listening? Are you open to the ideas of others? Are you hiring people for one skill, but then asking them to do another? Self-reflection. If I had to pick one thing, which is a difficult one because it can be all these different issues, right? But one thing is, as a leader, as a business owner, know yourself and know what your strengths are, know where your blind spots are, and build a team around you that will help you be the best version of yourself. And that includes being humble and willing to listen to the opinions of others.
That's a great advice, Alessandria. So business owners, or if you have a startup that is growing, the best you can do is start with yourself, understand yourself, understand what is it that you want, because problems are going to come. And if you're well equipped, then you're going to be able to model your culture, but you were going to model the type of business that you want. You're going to be able to grow and you're going to be able to tackle any issues that you have with your people or with your finance or with your sales.
I mean, in Silicon Valley, we have a saying of the fish rots from the head, right? So if you don't have it, the organization is going to reflect you. And if so you're not happy with how people are showing up, start with you. Did I hire people because they were, did I not make the right decision from a hiring perspective, or have my needs changed? Am I expecting too much? Am I under-resourcing the work? Am I not listening? So again, if I have to pick one thing, it would be start with you.
So anyone listening can have a conversation with you and go through a discovery, understanding what are the real problems and how to tackle that, and probably gain a lot of value out of applying the tools themselves first to pass it on to the team.
Yeah. I mean, that's my recommendation, is to start at the top, because if you don't, well, one, research shows that a large percentage of the executive teams in organizations actually have symptoms of mental health issues that we don't address when we, quite frankly, ignore. And so let's start by giving our executive team the skills to understand what their needs are, so that then they can emulate that throughout the business. Because if we just think, oh, well, because I've reached the ultimate in my career, and that means I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
There's imposter syndrome, there's perfectionism, there's the biases that we put on ourselves and others. Those things all show up for us. And just because you're you're paid more doesn't mean that you've necessarily been able to overcome those. And then that impacts the team.
Yes,
You and I were
obviously.
talking before, I really believe there are very few bad managers, and yet Gallup shows that 70% of managers are terrible. What's the gap, right? We spend a lot of time and energy and money on leadership development. It's not working.
It's not
And
working.
so,
Yes.
no, it's not working. So that's a really low outcome, right? Of quality leaders. So what's missing in my mind? What's missing is the ability for them to understand their own needs so that they can support the rest of the team.
And Alessandra, this takes me to, many articles that are out there of different sources and also research that people leave bad managers. You were saying something very interesting. There are no bad managers or leaders with the right skill sets. They can thrive. And you need that set of skills to develop because you've been in your field, in your expertise for many years. So that takes you to say, I know how to do things. And that's great because that's the level of autonomy a senior professional reaches. But then there is that component that is not anymore about your field. It's more about leading people. So when you reach to that level, regardless of the point of your career, maybe faster, slower, it's not about, for instance, HR anymore. It's not about finance anymore. It's not about figuring how to get funds for your startup. It's about managing people.
Yep.
There are many articles out there saying that bad managers are bad for your business. And of course, we do agree with that. But there's something that we can do about it.
Most people, again, there's a small percentage of people who have serious issues, but most people don't show up to be a really crappy manager, and they don't even know that what they're doing is having a negative impact. They think they're doing it right because we haven't equipped them with the skills to understand what they're doing. And so we tell them, you should be this, you should do that. Here's how to run a report. Here's how to build a strategy. That's all great. How do I motivate and create enthusiasm around those things? And then how do I break through my own mental models and biases about what it is to even be a leader, right? To feel comfortable being uncomfortable, to take those risks. And we can't just tell people, we have to equip them with the skills to be able to do it.
Absolutely. It requires time and effort. The time and effort you spend to become an expert on your field or a specialist. So then it's all about, as we were saying, is that is about managing people, and that's a skill itself that needs to be learned. But there is good news that there are ways to do that. Something that I hear as well all the time, and we know we can agree that a bad manager hurts your business. And it's really bad for retention because people leave bad bosses, people leave bad managers, people leave bad CEOs. It costs you a lot more to replace an employee than to keep your best employees happy with you, that they don't go to work for the competitors and you have to replace them. And today, turnover and retention are big problems for the business that need to be tackled. And it's a tough competitive market, and it's getting more competitive if not. So this is very important to ensure that you work on the retention of the people. And obviously the other objective is always having people at the best performance, productive, doing their job and being happy. So this is a particular good training or skills to develop for businesses that are having these issues.
Yeah, in today's workplace, because in addition to all those things you mentioned, which were all 2019 conversations we could have had, we're now experiencing what some are calling our second pandemic of our mental health crisis in the workplace. And so we all have the one brain, right? We don't have a work brain and a life brain. So stresses outside the office, stresses that impact us, the loss of a loved one, the fear of illness, global climate change, actually, but according to the World Health Organization, is a bigger existential crisis than COVID. These are impacting us emotionally and mentally. In fact, a study that recently came out of post-COVID-19, which I think it's a little too early to use words like post, but let's just call it post-COVID-19. On average, about 30% of people are experiencing symptoms of PTSD following COVID-19. Okay, if you think that doesn't show up in the workplace, we're kind of kidding ourselves. So in addition to all the 2019 reasons why we need to focus on the emotional well-being of our employees, now we have an exponential increase in emotional strain that impacts how people show up and their ability to thrive. So how are organizations responding? Well, in many ways, we're just going with what we know, which is reactive, right? Go talk to a counselor, get a coach. What I'm advocating for is proactive preparation in the skills that help you navigate, have been scientifically proven to help you navigate those challenges more effectively.
Absenteeism is quite high in companies at the moment. It has increased since probably during the pandemic. There were a lot of people that were putting all the best and working from home, even though they were sick. And now more and more people are stressed. And the stats are quite mind-blowing with how many people are experiencing burnout. The majority of professionals out there that had to tackle all the uncertainty that comes with a new pandemic. We didn't know what was going to bring. Business owners having the pressure as well to manage requirements, restrictions, people getting sick. What is the law around it? Impacts and delays on deliveries in supply chain. Probably pandemic payments to employees or having to lay off. So it has really gotten a toll on people. My last question for our interview today is, what do you think the future of work holds?
Well, I'm going to be very hopeful and optimistic in my response to that, but I do believe we've passed the point where we can ignore the emotional needs of humans in the workplace. We are feeling creatures who also think. And so we need to create workplaces that understand and appreciate that. It does not mean that we avoid conflict. That doesn't mean that we don't challenge and stretch people, but we need to create workplaces that understand that we have humans and not machines, and invest the same amount of energy and financial resources to maintain those human beings and treat them as such. So I believe the future of work is very positive. I think it ties to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, where we are focused on outcomes that hit the triple bottom line and, raise many boats.
It's great to hear that the future is very positive and couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Allessandria. It's been a total pleasure to have you, and I hope everyone enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. This was great.
Thank you for tuning in to the People Relations Podcast. We hope that today's discussion helps you find new ways to make better people decisions within your business. For additional insights and resources, remember to visit our website at peoplerelations.com.au. If you found value in this episode, please like and share the show with your friends who are dedicated to running and growing their businesses. We can't wait to have you back next time for more great conversations. Until then, take care and see you soon.